All right, week 4 college football breakdown here. Last game of the night, the After Dark special in the Pac-12. We got Stanford traveling to Seattle to take on the Huskies, coming off that big win against Michigan State. Line has reacted to that quite a bit. Washington's a 14-point favorite at home and seeing a pretty high total as well for a Stanford game, 62.5. It's Stanford or pass for me. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to the window with it. If I do add this, it won't be a one-unit play. It's a late-night game. We'll have lots of action throughout the day. If I were to add this, just be a smaller play. But listen, I came into the year thinking Washington was overvalued, and I still do think that. I bet against them last week pretty heavily when Michigan State went into Seattle. I think the one thing I didn't put enough credence into, and this is on me. I'm putting my hand up, but Michigan State's pass defense was horrible last year. I was assuming those issues. I wasn't saying they were going to be great coming into this year. I just didn't think that weakness was going to get exploited the way it did last week. It did. Michael Penix looked fantastic for Washington. 391 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, he totally controlled that game from start to finish. So tip your cap. I think we saw Washington, who I'll give Kalen DeBoer credit. If you watch the video from last week, I wasn't particularly bought in on Kalen DeBoer. Nobody's doubting that he's better for this Washington offense than Jimmy Lake was. So I'm not trying to go that far. I still have concerns about this team, though. And that same matchup, Michigan State's pass defense that they were able to exploit last week, I just don't think that's the case in this matchup. I think Stanford's a team that their strength defensively is actually in their secondary. Now, you might not have seen it against USC because it's USC. And I think when that offense is clicking with Caleb Williams and all the talent they have, they're going to put up big numbers on a lot of teams. But I'm still not so sold on Michael Penix. Go look at his career numbers. He's pretty inconsistent. And I don't think one game against a pretty poor pass defense is going to necessarily change that opinion. This is just a totally different matchup is basically what I'm trying to say. I'm not particularly high on Washington's run game either. And I do like somewhat what Stanford has at that second level. The only thing really keeping me off of Stanford here is I just don't like the way they're built in the trenches. It's kind of weird to say that, given that that's kind of been their MO really since Jim Harbaugh was there and kind of rebuilt that program. But especially on the defensive line, there's just not much resistance there. So, I mean, the other part of this too is, we saw Stanford actually run the ball better than I thought they would against USC a few weeks ago. Now, if you watched the last video, I think part of that is I don't like USC's defense. And I would actually probably lean to that being more the reason why. But this is not necessarily the toughest matchup. I still have concerns about Washington defensively. Now, they did stuff Michigan State's run game last week. But even so, Stanford is a team that's going to play through Tanner McKee at quarterback. I mean, this is a guy that NFL scouts are high on. I mean, guys like Davis Mills from Stanford that, weren't necessarily world beaters in college. But that's the kind of talent that a guy like Tanner McKee is and projects to be at the next level. He's got the weapons on the outside to be able to move the ball in this matchup. It's more so I'm interested to see, can Washington's defense throw up a repeat performance against the run? Because if they do make Stanford one-dimensional, wouldn't want to necessarily be on them in this spot. Theme from the channel, got to be multiple offensively. If you're a one-trick pony over a 60-minute game, you're probably going to get exposed for that. So I worry about that a little bit. And it's kind of, just the overall question marks about this game is what's keeping me off. But I do think Washington's a bit overvalued at this point. Teams are never really as good as you think they are, and they're probably not as bad as you think they are, according to what they did the week before, especially this early in the season, I'd say. If I had to play this game, I would play Stanford plus the 14. With that being said, I wasn't particularly high on Stanford coming into the year, and they still have clear holes at some key spots that you don't really want to have holes at. So that's kind of what's keeping me off at this point. Total, don't really have a great feel on that, but just in general, Stanford is not typically an over team. So seeing 62.5. Once again, I think that just puts a little bit too much stock into what Michael Penix did last week. Yeah, should be a good Pac-12 matchup to close out the night after dark. Appreciate y'all watching the video. If you like what you heard today, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and don't miss any of the upcoming content. Comment your best look on this game down below. Side, total. If you're not a betting guy, just a prediction. Comment your best look on this game down below. You see this shirt right here. I know you've been staring at it the whole time. Go to proud90.com. Unique but very comfortable polos as well. Also got t-shirts, hoodies, quarter zips. Proud 90's got all your golf apparel needs. If you see anything you like at checkout, use code Fordham. It's going to get you 15% off your entire order. Support me. Support Proud 90. Proud90.com.